So picture this. You have a successful online store, right? It's generating millions of dollars in revenue, but it can actually go completely bankrupt overnight just by like changing its web
Yeah,
address.
which is terrifying to think about, honestly.
Right, it really is. So welcome to today's deep dive where we are unpacking that exact scenario. We're looking at the exact moment a business basically outgrows its digital storefront. We're breaking down a really intense, honest 2026 playbook about migrating a massive e-commerce operation, specifically from WooCommerce over to Shopify.
And, we're not just looking at this as a technical manual. It's a strategic reality check.
Exactly. We're going to explore the hidden financial traps of this move, the mechanical SEO landmines that can just absolutely destroy your organic traffic, and some surprising pieces of customer data that, well, they just absolutely refuse to migrate.
Yeah, the foundational premise we were exploring today is, it's that you really shouldn't ever undertake a platform migration just to get like a shiny new feature.
Right, like just because you want a new button on the checkout page.
Exactly. You migrate when the operational cost of managing your own infrastructure is fundamentally capping your ability to grow.
Yeah.
So we're looking at what actually changes operationally, financially, technically, when a company unplugs its primary revenue engine and just moves it to a completely different ecosystem.
Okay, let's unpack this core dynamic because I was thinking about a good analogy for this. Running a store on WooCommerce is, well, it's like owning a standalone house where you are the general contractor.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, right. Like you have to do your own plumbing, you patch your own roof, and, if the electrical wiring catches fire in the middle of the night, you are the one holding the fire extinguisher.
Yeah, you're the one waking up at 2 a.m.
Exactly. You have total freedom to knock down a wall, but you carry the total responsibility. But then moving to Shopify, it's like moving into a penthouse suite in a high-end luxury high-rise. The maintenance is entirely included, the security guard is at the front desk, the elevators are incredibly fast, but you cannot knock down the walls, and you have to live by the building's strict association rules, and you are definitely paying steep management fees.
That framing really grounds the reality of the operational shift perfectly. Because before anyone packs up their data and, moves into that penthouse, they have to evaluate why they're packing up in the first place.
Right. Why go through the hassle?
It comes down to a shift in liability. Like you said, who owns the 2 a.m. emergencies? When a merchant runs WooCommerce, they're running self-hosted open source software. So they're carrying basically 4 distinct operational burdens that a managed platform just handles invisibly.
Okay, let's break those down, starting with the biggest headache, which is hosting and server management. Because, if a store goes viral on TikTok and 10,000 people try to load the checkout page at the exact same second.
Oh man, a typical WooCommerce server is just going to buckle under those database queries, the site crashes.
Right. But on Shopify, that hosting infrastructure becomes entirely invisible to the merchant. They guarantee a 99.99% uptime SLA because they're utilizing this massive global content delivery network.
Yeah, they're distributing the load across servers worldwide, so it just scales naturally. And then the second massive shift is PCI compliance.
Oh, right, the security stuff.
Yeah, to legally process credit cards, a store has to adhere to the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard. On WooCommerce, achieving this requires assembling this really complex stack of security plugins, configuring firewalls.
It sounds exhausting.
It is, and running vulnerability scans. And the merchant holds the legal liability if a breach occurs. But moving to a hosted platform shifts that burden. Shopify provides level 1 PCI compliance by default.
Wow.
So they take on the legal and technical burden of securing that payment data right at the foundational level.
That's huge. And then we have the update cycle. Our sources go into so much detail about the dread of the what they call the Tuesday plugin update.
Oh, the dreaded Tuesday updates, yeah.
Because on WooCommerce, a site might rely on 40 different plugins built by 40 different developers. So hitting update on a simple shipping calculator plugin might unexpectedly conflict with, say, a caching plugin and completely break the checkout page.
Exactly. Every update requires this delicate staging to production dance.
But on Shopify, those core updates just happen continuously in the background. You never even push a button. And the support model shifts too, right? From relying on open source community forums to actually having a 204/7 official line to call.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is the psychological shift this creates for an operations team. They move from a defensive posture, where their primary goal is literally just keeping the servers from melting down during a Black Friday flash sale, to an offensive posture.
Right, like actually growing the business.
Exactly. When you no longer have to manage the underlying plumbing, your engineers can actually focus on optimizing the conversion rate and selling more product.
Wait, I have to push back on this premise just a little bit.
Sure, go ahead.
Anyone who has ever spun up a WordPress site knows that WooCommerce is practically free to install. So if a store owner is just dealing with, slow loading times or minor server hiccups, undergoing a massive 3 to 8 week enterprise migration project seems, well, absurd.
It does sound like a lot.
Yeah, it sounds like using a sledgehammer to fix a leaky faucet. Why not just buy a better server?
Well, that is the exact threshold that defines a necessary migration versus a vanity project. Our playbook calls this the stay and fix alternative.
Okay, stay and fix.
Yeah, if the core pain point is strictly server performance, like slow load times or traffic spikes causing crashes, the solution is just to move the existing site from a cheap shared host to a premium managed WooCommerce host, like Kinsta or WP Engine. It is vastly cheaper and faster than a full Shopify migration.
So you're just upgrading the plumbing in the house you already own.
Exactly. A true migration should only be triggered when the software architecture itself, the constant plugin conflicts, the sheer volume of developer hours required to maintain the custom code, when all that becomes the bottleneck. You migrate when the platform, not the infrastructure beneath it, is holding you back.
Got it. Okay, so throwing money at premium WooCommerce hosting kind of reveals the real issue here, which is the invisible invoice of maintaining custom software.
Yes, the invisible invoice is a great way to describe it.
Let's look at what the total cost of ownership actually is over a 3-year period, because the financial math of migrating can be incredibly deceptive. Up front, WooCommerce maintains the illusion of being free, while Shopify carries a pretty steep monthly subscription.
Right, and the upfront project costs of moving are really wildly bifurcated. The actual data migration tools, just fetching a product catalog and pulling it over, are surprisingly cheap.
Like, how cheap are we talking?
Well, automated services like Light Extension or Cart2Cart handled the bulk of this raw data transfer for under $300.
Oh, wow, that is cheap.
Yeah. The wildly unpredictable variable, the real black hole of the budget, is the theme rebuild.
Right, because if a merchant is willing to just use a standard, highly optimized default Shopify theme, the design cost is virtually zero.
Exactly.
But if they insist on custom building a, pixel-perfect replica of their old WooCommerce store, the project costs skyrockets. We're talking going from a few $1,000s to upwards of $50,000. Why is simply matching the look of the old site so expensive?
Well, the platforms speak entirely different coding languages. A WooCommerce theme is built on PHP and CSS, which means it actively queries the database to build pages dynamically on the fly.
Okay.
But a Shopify theme utilizes liquid templates and JSON. It renders precompiled data to serve pages much faster. So trying to force Shopify's liquid architecture to mimic a highly customized PHP framework is essentially, it's like translating a dense technical manual from French into Japanese without losing any nuance.
Oh, man, so it just forces developers to write bloated workarounds.
Exactly. And furthermore, attempting to pixel match an old design rarely actually improves the conversion rate. The data consistently shows that stores see flat or even better conversion by simply adopting a clean, modern Shopify default theme rather than stubbornly clinging to their old layout.
That brings us to a huge financial aha moment regarding the 3-year total cost of ownership. When you map out the expenses through year 2 and year 3, Shopify actually becomes cheaper for most mid-market stores.
It really does.
Because the monthly subscription fee just absorbs all the developer hours previously spent patching plugins. It absorbs the hosting costs, the SSL certificate renewals, and, the dozens of premium plugin licenses the merchant had to renew annually on WooCommerce.
It is totally a reallocation of resources. Instead of paying a developer a retainer to ensure the site doesn't crash, you are paying a platform fee for guaranteed stability. However,
there's catch.
There is a massive hidden financial mechanism that catches merchants completely off guard if they don't audit their payment stack beforehand.
Here is where it gets really interesting. The payment processing surcharge trap. Because on WooCommerce, if a merchant uses a gateway like Stripe or PayPal, they simply pay that provider's standard credit card processing fee.
Right, totally standard.
But Shopify operates with a very specific economic lever. If a merchant uses an external gateway instead of Shopify's native gateway, which is Shopify Payments, the platform slaps an additional surcharge on every single transaction.
Yeah, and that surcharge is roughly 2% on their basic plan, scaling down to about 0.2% for high-volume enterprise stores on Shopify Plus.
It is essentially a corkage fee.
Yes.
It's exactly like bringing your own bottle of wine to a restaurant, and the restaurant charges you a fee because you aren't buying their wine. If a store is generating $500,000 a year in revenue on Shopify Basic, and they insist on routing payments through an external PayPal gateway, they are handing Shopify an extra $10,000 a year purely in corkage fees.
It's wild.
That singular fee is enough to fund the entire technical migration twice over.
Right, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, platform economics dictate that Shopify is heavily incentivizing the use of their internal ecosystem. Merchants are fundamentally penalized for trying to maintain independence in their payment routing.
Which makes sense for Shopify, but
But the critical danger arises when a merchant actually cannot use Shopify payments.
wait, not every business is allowed to use the native gateway.
No, absolutely not. Certain product categories are permanently restricted by the underwriting banks that Shopify partners with.
Oh, interesting. Like what?
So if a merchant sells firearms, specific high-risk supplements, adult content, or even CBD products in certain regions, they are explicitly prohibited from using Shopify payments.
Oh, wow. So they have no choice.
Exactly. This means they are forced to use a third-party gateway, which makes that platform surcharge a permanent, unavoidable tax on their gross revenue. A merchant absolutely must verify their gateway eligibility before they even begin to scope a migration project. Skipping that due diligence completely breaks the financial model of the move.
Okay, so let's assume the financial math checks out. The merchant verifies their payment eligibility, they agree to the ecosystem rules, and moving day arrives. Just like moving physical goods across the country, some things fit cleanly into the moving truck, and some things simply cannot make the journey.
Yeah, the data transfer matrix reveals some really stark realities about platform lock-in.
Right, so the clean move includes the foundational catalog data, products, SKU variants, product descriptions, those migrate smoothly.
And the migration tools will actually reach into the old WordPress media library, fetch the high-resolution images, and rehost them natively on Shopify's content delivery network.
That's convenient. And customer lists, including names and addresses, they port over perfectly too. Historical orders also move, creating a seamless paper trail for the customer service team, though they exist in a read-only state, right?
Yeah, that's a key distinction. A customer service rep cannot process a backward-looking refund directly in Shopify for an order that was originally captured in WooCommerce, like months prior. The funds actually have to be returned through the original gateway dashboard.
Okay, good to know. But the severe casualties of the migration, the things that just do not make the truck, are active subscriptions and customer passwords.
Yes.
Hold on, I have to say, this is the part that completely defies logic for anyone outside of database engineering. We have the technology to automatically port tens of thousands of historical orders, perfectly mapping every complex product variant across servers, but we cannot move a simple string of text that makes up a customer's password.
It sounds crazy, I know.
Forcing a customer to jump through hoops just to log in seems like a guaranteed way to infuriate a loyal buyer.
It does feel like a massive oversight of the migration tools, but this raises an important question about how data actually works. This is governed by universal data security laws, not platform limitations. See, neither WooCommerce nor Shopify actually knows your password. When you create an account, the platform runs your password through a cryptographic hashing algorithm. It takes your password, let's say it's Apple123, and it turns it into a scrambled, irreversible string of characters.
Ah, okay. So it's a one-way street. It's like putting a steak through a meat grinder. You cannot reconstruct the steak from the ground beef.
Precisely the mechanic at play. That's a perfect analogy. WooCommerce and Shopify utilize fundamentally different hashing algorithms. You cannot translate a WooCommerce hash into a Shopify hash without knowing the original raw text, which the system is explicitly designed to never store.
Right, because if they stored the raw text, it would be a huge security risk.
Exactly. Therefore, migrating the passwords is mathematically impossible. The transition strategy dictates a very specific, non-negotiable sequence. On day one of the new site going live, the merchant must trigger an automated account invite email to the entire customer base.
Framed positively, I assume.
Right. The messaging is usually framed like, we have upgraded our storefront. Please activate your new account to access your complete order history. If a merchant skips this crucial communication step, their customer support inbox will be hopelessly buried under I can't log in tickets within literally hours of launch.
Oof, yeah, that sounds like a nightmare. And active billing subscriptions suffer a similar fate, correct? Because the payment tokens vaulting a customer's credit card cannot just magically jump between different platform vaults.
Right.
The merchant is effectively asking the customer to sign a brand new billing contract in the new building.
Yes, they require explicit reconsent.
Yep.
You cannot quietly migrate an active recurring billing profile without the customer actively re-authenticating their payment method in the new checkout environment.
Wow. Okay, so a botched password reset or a clumsy subscription migration will certainly cause a massive headache for customer service, but failing to handle our next topic will literally destroy a store's revenue overnight.
Yes, it will.
We need to dissect the silent revenue killer of replatforming, SEO, and URL mapping.
This is the single mechanical failure point where multi-million-dollar migrations live or die.
The structural breakdown happens with search engine optimization. So WooCommerce constructs its web addresses, its URLs, in a very specific customizable format. Usually a product page looks like /product/your item name, and importantly, it frequently ends with a trailing slash.
Right.
But Shopify forces a rigid, immutable URL structure. It always uses /products, plural, and explicitly forbids a trailing slash at the end.
And, to a human reading the address bar, it is a microscopic grammatical difference.
We barely even notice it.
Right. But to Google's indexing bots, those are two completely unrelated websites. Without a comprehensive one-to-one mapping spreadsheet, a 301 redirect map, every single page Google has ever indexed becomes a 404-page not found error the exact moment the Shopify site goes live.
It's the equivalent of moving your physical brick-and-mortar boutique to a shiny new address across town, but forgetting to leave a forwarding address sign on the old door. Customers and Google's search bots drive to the old location and just find an empty dirt lot. Skipping this step creates a 20 to 60% drop in organic search traffic. The recovery takes 3 to 6 months, and honestly, some rankings never return. But, why can't a simple WordPress plugin just auto-forward all the old traffic? Why is this a manual spreadsheet exercise?
Well, the internet infrastructure will route the traffic automatically, but it requires explicit instructions. A plugin simply cannot guess what your new URL structure is going to be, especially if you take the opportunity to, rename product categories or restructure your blog archives during the move.
Which a lot of people do during a migration.
Right. The only way to capture everything is to deploy a crawling tool, like Screaming Frog, to scrape the live WooCommerce store before the migration even begins. This tool indexes every single URL that currently exists, capturing the hidden blog posts and old landing pages driving long-tail traffic that the marketing team might have honestly just forgotten about.
Because if you miss an old blog post that happens to be driving 10% of your organic traffic, that revenue simply vanishes.
It's gone.
And this introduces the trailing/trap, right? If an operations team builds their meticulous redirect map, but accidentally tells the system to forward an old URL to a Shopify URL with a trailing slash at the end, it triggers a cascade failure.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah.
Shopify receives the incoming traffic, realizes it fundamentally rejects trailing slashes, and forcibly redirects the user again to the version without the slash.
So it creates a double hop redirect. The traffic bounces twice before loading the page. And Google will technically tolerate this, but it actively penalizes the site by consuming its crawl budget.
Yeah, search engines only allocate a certain amount of processing power to index a website each day. If Google's bots have to process 2 redirects for every single product page, they exhaust their budget before crawling the entire catalog.
Wow.
That severely delays how fast Google understands and ranks the new site. The 301 redirect map must be absolutely flawless.
Okay, so the meticulous spreadsheet is built, the URLs are mapped flawlessly, the team accepts the reality of the password resets, the DNS switch is flipped, and the web address now points to Shopify servers. The site is live to the public.
It's like time to celebrate, right?
But the champagne stays in the fridge because the most critical, high-stress week of the entire project has just begun.
Oh, absolutely. The post-launch window is thoroughly about triage. The visual changes are immediate. The software stack physically shrinks. On WooCommerce, an operations team is usually managing 15 to 30 active plugins just to handle caching, security, database optimization, backups.
It's a lot to juggle.
It is. On Shopify, that architecture compresses down to maybe 5 or 10 specialized apps because the core infrastructure is native to the platform.
Yep.
It is a drastically lighter operational load. However, the launch itself demands hypervigilance. The strategy relies on a strict 7-day post-launch checklist.
Let's examine the urgency of that triage.
Yeah.
Step 1. Within the first 24 hours, the team triggers the account invite email to initiate the password reset wave. Step 2. They take that massive 301 redirect spreadsheet and they deploy a crawler against it again in the live environment. Every old WooCommerce URL must be tested to ensure it seamlessly forwards to a live Shopify page with a 200 status code. No 404 errors.
Not a single one.
Step 3. The team manually generates the new XML sitemap and submits it directly to Google Search Console. You do not passively wait for Google to notice you moved. You force the search engine to acknowledge the new architecture.
And then comes the most anxiety-inducing phase.
Step 4.
Step 4. Running real, unsimulated credit card transactions across every single payment method.
Wait, using real money?
Using real money. The team must push live purchases through Apple Pay, PayPal, and standard credit cards. They have to verify that shipping algorithms calculate the correct dimensional weight, that regional tax compliance rules fire properly, and crucially, that the refund flow actually deposits money back into the test accounts.
It sounds like the operations team is playing a high-stakes, incredibly stressful game of whack-a-mole right at the moment the executives think the project is finished and want to celebrate.
The stress is totally necessary. In the context of business operations, an error caught on day 2 is incredibly cheap to fix. An error caught on day 20 is catastrophically expensive.
Right.
If the automated order confirmation emails are somehow triggering spam filters, the team needs to know that on Tuesday, not 3 weeks later, when they have hundreds of furious customers charging back their credit cards because they think the site is a scam.
Which brings up a critical strategic mandate regarding the calendar. You must never, under any circumstances, execute a platform migration during Q4 or leading into peak holiday sales events.
Never. If a team is playing whack-a-mole with broken shipping calculators during Black Friday, they are hemorrhaging irreplaceable revenue.
Yeah, that would be a disaster.
The underlying software does not care what month it is, but Google's recrawl pace and, honestly, the operations team's sheer sanity require a substantial buffer. Merchants absolutely must lock in a quiet trading window like Q1 or the midsummer slump, where inevitable post-launch mistakes will not sink the entire year's financial targets.
So, to pull this all together for you listening, moving a massive business from WooCommerce to Shopify is not just a software update. It is a fundamental operational trade-off.
Right.
A business is choosing to buy back its time. You are paying Shopify to handle the invisible infrastructure, the 2 a.m. server crashes, and the massive liability of security compliance. But to successfully transition into that managed environment, you have to adhere strictly to their rules. You must respect the unforgiving mechanics of SEO mapping, you must navigate their payment processing fees, and you must accept the friction of migrating customer data.
It really is the ultimate exchange of total custom control for operational peace of mind.
It is.
But this transition leaves us with a lingering, provocative question.
Oh, I like those.
If your brand's unique identity is tied to custom, bespoke logic like unique checkout flows and highly specialized plugin interactions, is surrendering that ultimate control worth the operational stability? Or does the rigidly standardized nature of a managed platform like Shopify eventually force every e-commerce brand to operate and ultimately look exactly the same?
That is a fascinating question to chew on. Is standardization killing uniqueness in e-commerce? Well, we will leave you to explore that on your own. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep diving deep into the systems that run our digital world, and we will catch you next time.